Count them with me. Tropicana gone. 67 years of history bulldozed for a baseball stadium. Nothing left but rubble and renderings. Mirage gone. The volcano dark forever. The white tiger's a memory. Another icon erased. Circus circling the drain. Mold in the rooms. Security nowhere to be found. A billionaire running out the clock until demolition makes sense. Excalibur on borrowed time. A castle from 1990 sitting on land worth more than the building will ever be again. The Flamingo decaying in plain sight. Bugsy Siegel's dream rotting while accountants calculate when to pull the plug. 5 properties, 5 death sentences. And that's just the ones we've talked about. 5 years ago, the Las Vegas Strip had over 30 casino resorts. 30 properties stretching 4 miles of neon and noise and possibility. Budget options and luxury towers and everything in between. A casino for every taste, every budget, every definition of a good time. Today, count again. Count the ones that are healthy. Count the ones that aren't showing warning signs. The list gets short fast. And here's what nobody wants to talk about. The thing that should be leading every news story about Las Vegas, but somehow never does. We're not just losing casinos, we're losing the competition that made Vegas work. When casinos close, prices rise. That's basic economics. When competition disappears, the survivors don't have to fight for your business anymore, they don't have to offer deals, they don't have to keep prices reasonable. They don't have to care whether you can afford it. They just have to exist and collect whatever you're willing to pay. The affordable Vegas trip, the one that let a working-class family from Ohio drive across the desert and feel like high rollers for a weekend. That trip is dying with every casino that closes. If you're new here, I expose what's really happening behind the neon. Not the tourism board press releases, not the influencer content. The financial reality that determines which buildings survive and which ones become parking lots. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the Vegas you know is disappearing, and what replaces it won't feel the same. Today, I'm showing you the survivor math. How many properties can actually make it through the next decade? Who's safe? Who's pretending? And what happens when the strip narrows from 30 casinos to 10? The answer is smaller than you think, and the implications are darker than anyone wants to admit. Here's how you identify a survivor. Every property on the strip has to pass 3 tests. Fail 1, and you're vulnerable. Fail 2, and you're in trouble. Fail all 3, and you're already dead, you just don't know it yet. Test 1, manageable debt. Can you service your loans without bleeding cash every month? Can you make interest payments and still have money left for operations? Most properties fail this test immediately. Caesars Entertainment is carrying $12 billion in debt. $12 billion? That's not a typo. That's a death sentence spread across a portfolio of aging properties. MGM sold its buildings, the actual physical structures, to private equity firms just to stay solvent. They're tenants now, paying rent on casinos they used to own. The Sahara is drowning in $2 billion of resurrection debt that isn't generating enough revenue to service. Debt is the silent killer, and almost everyone on the strip is infected. Test 2, modern amenities. This is where nostalgia meets reality. Can your rooms compete with what opened 5 years ago? Do your restaurants hold up against off-strip options? Are you offering experiences that justify the prices you're charging? Walk through the Flamingo, walk through Excalibur, walk through the Link. Feel that gap between what they're charging and what they're delivering. Half the strip fails this test. Properties frozen in time, hoping tourists won't notice that 2010 wasn't actually that recent. Test 3, scale. This one's brutal. The mega resorts have 4,000 rooms, 5,000, 7,000 at the Venetian complex. They have dozens of restaurants, massive convention spaces, multiple pools, theaters, clubs, every amenity you can imagine. How does a 2,000 room property compete with that? How does a boutique casino fight for attention against a city within a city? It doesn't. Not anymore. The economics of modern Las Vegas favor the giants, the massive properties that can spread fixed costs across endless revenue streams. The smaller properties get squeezed out, not because they're bad, because they're not big enough to matter. 3 tests: debt, amenities, scale. Run every property on the strip through those filters. Count the ones that pass all 3. you'll get a number that should alarm you. A number so small, it means the Strip is heading towards something Las Vegas has never experienced. A monopoly dressed up as choice. Let me count them for you. The real survivors. The properties that actually pass all 3 tests. Wynn and Encore. Probably safe, low debt relative to assets, luxury positioning that commands premium rates. Steve Wynn built them to last, and despite everything, they still feel like the future. Venetian and Palazzo. Apollo Global Management owns them now, private equity, which brings its own risks, but the scale is undeniable. Nearly 7,000 rooms combined. A convention business that prints money. Cosmopolitan, MGM's crown jewel, the one property they actually invest in, actually innovate at, actually seem to care about. Aria and Vidara, same story. MGM's luxury tier, the children that get fed while the others starve. Resorts World, too new to fail. The debt is crushing, but the Malaysian owners are too committed to walk away. Not yet, anyway. Count them, 8 properties, maybe 10 if you're generous and include some Caesars holdings that are still receiving investment. 8 survivors out of 30+ casinos. That's not a healthy industry. That's a mass extinction event in slow motion. But here's what should really keep you up at night. Even those survivors, the Wynns, the Venetians, the Cosmopolitans, even they aren't as safe as they look. Because the same forces killing the weak properties, the debt, the private equity extraction, the sale-leaseback deals that turn owners into tenants. Those forces are starting to crack the strong ones too. Nobody is safe. Some are just dying slower than others. You'd think the survivors would be thriving. Less competition, more tourists funneling into fewer properties, pricing power that lets them charge whatever they want. That's the theory. That's what the spreadsheets say should happen. But walk through those safe properties, talk to the employees, read between the lines of the earnings calls. The survivors aren't thriving. They're showing stress fractures that most tourists never notice. Let's start with the Venetian. On paper, this should be the safest property on the Strip. Nearly 7,000 rooms between the Venetian and Palazzo. Iconic architecture, premium positioning, the kind of scale that should guarantee survival. But there's a clock ticking on the Venetian, and most tourists have no idea it exists. In 2021, Apollo Global Management bought the Venetian for over $6 billion. Apollo, that name should make you nervous. Apollo is private equity, and private equity has a playbook. We've seen it destroy retail chains. We've seen it gut newspapers. We've seen it hollow out hospitals and nursing homes and any industry unlucky enough to attract their attention. The playbook is simple. Buy the asset, load it with debt, extract cash through management fees and special dividends, defer maintenance, cut staffing, optimize for the exit. The exit, that's what matters. Not the long-term health of the property, not the guest experience, not the workers who depend on those jobs. The exit, the moment Apollo sells to the next buyer and moves on to the next target. The Venetian still looks beautiful. For now, the canals still flow, the gondoliers still sing, the ceiling still fools tourists into thinking they're seeing an Italian sky. But private equity doesn't hold assets forever. They hold them until the return makes sense, then they move on. What happens to the Venetian when Apollo decides it's time to cash out? What condition will it be in after years of optimization? The clock is ticking, and nobody knows when the alarm goes off. But Apollo isn't the only problem. Let's talk about MGM, the company that owns or claims to own half the Las Vegas Strip. Bellagio, Mandalay Bay, Aria, Park, MGM, the Cosmopolitan, Luxor, Excalibur, New York, New York. On paper, MGM dominates Las Vegas. In reality, MGM made a decision that changed everything. They sold their buildings. Not metaphorically, literally. MGM sold the Bellagio to Blackstone for over $4 billion. Sold Mandalay Bay. Sold property after property in sale-leaseback deals that converted ownership into rent payments. They got billions in cash, short-term liquidity, money to pay down debt and buy back stock and make the quarterly numbers look healthy. In exchange, they're paying rent, hundreds of millions of dollars per year, to Blackstone, to VC properties, to landlords who now own the buildings MGM operates. for 30 years with escalators built in, rent that increases automatically year after year, whether revenues go up or not. Think about what that does to incentives. When you own a building, you invest in it, you maintain it, you renovate it, because every dollar you put in increases the value of something you own. When you rent a building, the math changes. Why spend money improving someone else's asset? Why invest in infrastructure you don't own? Why think long-term when you're just a tenant? MGM's survivors aren't owned by MGM anymore. They're rented, and rented properties get treated like rented properties. You can already see it at the Bellagio. The fountains still dance, the lobby still dazzles, the Chihuly ceiling still catches the light. But walk past the showpieces, take the elevator up, open the door to your $400 room. Furniture showing wear, fixtures losing their shine, service that's been thinned by attrition positions that don't get refilled when people quit. The Bellagio is being managed for cash extraction now, not for legacy, not for excellence, for quarterly returns to shareholders who've never set foot in Las Vegas. And then there's Caesars. If MGM is wounded, Caesars is hemorrhaging. $12 billion in debt? $12 billion. Interest payments that come due every month like clockwork. An obligation so crushing that every decision, every budget, every property becomes a calculation about survival. Caesars emerged from bankruptcy a few years ago. They immediately loaded up on debt again, because that's what private equity does, and Caesars is effectively a private equity project wearing a hospitality costume. So Caesars triages. Caesars Palace gets investment. It has to. It's the flagship, the name on the building. Paris Las Vegas gets some attention. The location is too good to ignore completely. Everything else? The Flamingo, the Link, Horseshoe, Harrah's. Those properties get harvested, maintenance deferred, staff reduced, cash extracted until the land becomes worth more than the buildings. Caesars isn't running a hospitality company. They're running a liquidation disguised as tourism. Step back, look at the picture. MGM leveraged to the ceiling, tenants in buildings they used to own extracting from their own properties. Caesars drowning in debt, triaging properties, harvesting the weak to feed the strong. Apollo private equity playbook running on a timer, Venetian's future uncertain. These are the survivors. These are the companies that control the future of Las Vegas. They're not healthy, they're not stable, they're not building for the long term. They're wounded animals that happen to still be standing, and wounded animals make desperate decisions. Two corporations control most of the strip. Both are compromised. Both are playing financial games that prioritize survival over excellence. The properties they're saving are being hollowed out from within. The investment that built Las Vegas has been replaced by extraction. The ownership that cared about legacy has been replaced by landlords who care about rent checks. So what happens next? What happens when even the survivors start failing? What does Las Vegas become when the field narrows from 30 casinos to 15, then 10, then 5? What does the strip look like when competition dies completely? The answer is darker than anyone wants to admit, and it's already starting to take shape. So what happens next? What happens when even the survivors start cracking? When the private equity timers go off? When the sale-leaseback incentives finish hollowing out the buildings from within? The strip is heading toward a consolidation that would have been unthinkable 20 years ago. A handful of properties, 2 or 3 owners, the illusion of choice, masking something much darker. And when that happens, everything about Las Vegas changes. Start with prices. Competition keeps prices in check. When 30 casinos fight for tourists, they have to offer value, deals, promotions, comps, reasons to choose them over the property next door. That pressure is what built Las Vegas. That competition is why a middle-class family from Ohio could save up for a year and actually afford a Vegas vacation. Why the town felt democratic. Why anyone could experience the magic. When 5 mega resorts control the strip, that pressure disappears. Room rates climb because where else are you going to stay? Resort fees increase because who's going to stop them? Table minimums rise because there's no low-cost alternative down the street. We're already seeing it. Room rates that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Resort fees that have tripled since 2015. $25 blackjack minimums on Tuesday afternoons at properties that used to offer $5 tables. And it only gets worse as competition dies. The budget Vegas trip, the one your parents took, the one that let working families experience something special, that trip becomes impossible, priced out of existence. Vegas becomes a destination only for the wealthy. Everyone else gets a streaming service documentary about what it used to be like. But the price increases are just the beginning. Money is abstract, numbers on a screen, easy to ignore if you're not planning a trip this year. What's harder to ignore is the human cost. The workers, the dealers and housekeepers and bartenders and cooks who built their entire lives around this industry. What happens to them when the casinos close? Every casino that closes takes jobs with it. Not a handful of jobs, not a few positions that get absorbed by the competition. Thousands of jobs, entire careers, lives built around an industry that's contracting. The Tropicana employed over 1,000 people, gone. The Mirage employed nearly 3,000, gone. Circus still employs hundreds of workers who can see the writing on the wall, who know the mold in the walls isn't getting fixed, who know the security cuts and the maintenance deferrals are signs of something terminal. They go to work every day knowing the axe is coming. They just don't know when. And when properties close, those workers don't magically find new positions. The surviving casinos are cutting staff, not hiring. Attrition policies that don't refill positions when people quit. Automation replacing jobs that used to support families. The skeleton crews getting skeletaler. Las Vegas has always been a working-class city, a place where you could support a family dealing cards, where a housekeeper could afford a home, where unions fought for wages and benefits that built the middle class. That city is dying with every casino that closes. The prices go up, the jobs disappear, but there's one more consequence. One that's harder to measure, but impossible to ignore once you see it. The thing that made Vegas different from every other city on Earth. The thing we're losing that we can never get back. The soul. Las Vegas used to be a place of variety. Every casino had its own personality, its own crowd, its own vibe. The Tropicana felt different from the Flamingo, felt different from Circus. Circus felt different from the Mirage. You could find your Vegas, the Vegas that matched your budget, your energy, your idea of a good time, whether that was high roller luxury or penny slots and cheap buffets. Walk the strip now, feel the sameness creeping in. The same luxury tower aesthetic repeated 6 times with different logos, the same celebrity chef restaurants, the same nightclub concepts, the same Instagram-optimized experiences designed by the same consultants for the same imaginary customer. This is what consolidation does. This is what happens when 2 or 3 corporations control an entire destination. Variety dies, character dies, the weird, specific, slightly dangerous energy that made Vegas feel alive that dies too. What replaces it is homogenization, corporate sameness, a city that looks like variety but feels like a shopping mall. Every property optimized for the same high-value customer who doesn't actually exist in the numbers developers promise. Every experience smoothed down to eliminate anything that might be interesting or strange or human. Vegas used to be a city of weirdness and wonder. It's becoming a city of spreadsheets and shareholders. The survivors aren't saving Las Vegas. They're inheriting its corpse. A strip with 8 properties instead of 30, competition replaced by consolidation, variety replaced by monopoly. The tourists who visit in 2035 won't know what they're missing. They'll see the fountains and the lights and assume this is what Vegas always was. They'll never know about the Tropicana, the Mirage Volcano, the old circus where kids watched trapeze artists and dreamed about possibility. They'll never know what we lost. So consider this a warning. If you love Las Vegas, the real Las Vegas, the chaotic and democratic and slightly dangerous Vegas, the window is closing. Visit now. Experience the variety while it still exists. Walk through the casinos that are dying. Appreciate what we're losing before it's gone. Talk to the dealers who remember when the floors were packed. The bartenders who've watched the free pours get stingier. The locals who can see their city being hollowed out. Because in 10 years, this conversation will be history, and all that will remain are the survivors and the tourists who never knew what Vegas used to be. Hit subscribe if you want to watch this unfold in real time. I'm tracking the closures, the consolidations, the slow death of a city I love. Drop a comment, what do you think Vegas looks like in 2035? How many casinos survive? Does the magic survive with them, or does it die with the competition? Because we're watching the end of an era. Most people don't even realize it's happening. The neon still glows, the fountains still dance, but behind the lights, the survivor list keeps shrinking, and nobody's coming to save what's being lost. I'll see you in the next one.